What if one decision could ruin everything you've worked for? One choice that people never forget, no matter how much success you have. That's exactly what happened to Anthony Kiedis, the frontman of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. He's one of the biggest rock stars in the world. Known for his crazy stage presence, emotional lyrics, and nonstop energy. Fans love him for songs like Under the Bridge and Californication, which tell stories about his struggles with drugs and his wild lifestyle. But there's another story, one that's a lot darker, a story that Anthony himself admitted to in his autobiography. It's the kind of thing that makes people question everything about him. Even some of his biggest fans couldn't defend him after hearing it. So how did he get to that moment, and what exactly did he do? Let's start from the beginning. Anthony Kiedis was born on November 1st, 1962, in Grand Rapids, Michigan. His parents split up when he was just 3, so he spent most of his childhood with his mother. Life was pretty normal: school, friends, and even dreams of becoming an actor. But every summer he visited his dad in Los Angeles, and that's when things took a wild turn. His father, John Kiedis, better known as Blackie Dammit, wasn't like other dads. He was deep in LA's party scene, hanging out with rock stars and living a fast life. When Anthony visited, he was thrown into a world of late nights, famous faces, and no rules. Instead of being told to stay away from trouble, he was introduced to it firsthand. By the time he was 12, Anthony had already tried things most adults avoid. But that wasn't even the worst part. His father also set up his first experience with a woman, arranging for his own girlfriend to be the one. At the time, Anthony didn't see anything wrong with it. But looking back, it's clear his childhood was far from normal. At 15, he left Michigan for good and moved to LA full-time. That's when things really started spiraling. Moving to Los Angeles full-time was like stepping into a whole new world for Anthony. He wasn't just visiting the wild lifestyle anymore, he was living it. But in the middle of all the chaos, he found something that would change his life: music. In high school, Anthony became close friends with Michael "Flea" Balsari, a talented bass player. Through Flea, he also met guitarist Hillel Slovak and drummer Jack Irons. The four of them had a natural chemistry, spending their time listening to music, goofing around, and getting into trouble. While Flea and Hillel were serious about playing in bands, Anthony never thought of himself as a musician. That all changed one night when he jumped on stage with his friends and delivered a wild spoken word performance. The energy was electric, and just like that, a band was born. At first, they were just a local act, playing small clubs and experimenting with their sound, a mix of funk, punk, and raw energy. But their wild performances caught the attention of record labels, and in 1984, they signed their first deal. The Red Hot Chili Peppers had officially arrived. Success didn't come easy. They faced lineup changes, financial struggles, and growing personal issues. But their breakthrough was just around the corner. Soon they'd be playing sold-out shows, dominating the charts, and becoming one of the biggest rock bands in the world. But with fame came even more temptation. And for Anthony, things were about to get much worse. As the Red Hot Chili Peppers started to take off, Anthony was living the dream, or at least that's how it looked from the outside. Behind the scenes, things were getting out of control. The rock star lifestyle wasn't just about music, it was about excess. And Anthony dove headfirst into all of it. At first, it was just about having fun, but soon it became something he couldn't escape. He started missing rehearsals, disappearing for days, and struggling to keep up with the band. His close friend and bandmate, Hillel Slovak, was dealing with the same struggles. The two of them promised to support each other, but neither could break free. Then came the moment that shook the entire band. Hillel was found unresponsive in his apartment after a long battle with his demons. It was a devastating loss. Jack Irons, the band's drummer, was so heartbroken that he quit on the spot. As for Anthony, he ran. Instead of going to the funeral, he disappeared, unable to face the reality of what had happened. For a while, he tried to clean up. He even checked into rehab and managed to stay on a better path, for a little while. But the cycle continued. He would get better, then fall back into bad habits. His struggles inspired some of the band's biggest songs, including Under the Bridge, a heartbreaking reflection on loneliness and regret. But as bad as things got, nothing would compare to the decision he made next. Anthony Kiedis had made a lot of bad choices in his life, but there was one that stood out from the rest. One decision so shocking that it made even his most loyal fans question everything. He wrote about it himself in his autobiography, almost like he didn't realize how bad it was.
Physically and then emotionally, I developed the tendencies that I needed to.
According to his own words, it happened after a show in Louisiana. A girl had come backstage and Anthony, being the rock star that he was, didn't think twice about spending the night with her. The next day, while they were traveling together, she casually dropped a bombshell. She was only 14 years old. Anthony admitted that he wasn't even scared when he found out. His only concern was getting her back home. But before they parted ways, he said they spent one more night together. He even described it in a way that made it seem like just another story from his wild past. For years, this disturbing confession went unnoticed by most people. Some hardcore fans brushed it off, treating it as part of the rock star lifestyle. Others refused to believe it. But in recent years, as more conversations have been had about accountability in the music industry, this story has resurfaced. The fact that Anthony openly admitted to it makes it even more shocking. He didn't just get away with it, he wrote about it in his book, turned it into a song, Catholic Schoolgirls Rule, and kept on living his rock star life without consequences. This was the moment that changed everything. It wasn't just another bad decision. It was something that could have ruined him. And yet, somehow, it didn't. As shocking as that decision was, it wasn't the only time Anthony Kiedis found himself in trouble. Throughout his career, he built a reputation not just as a rock star, but as someone who constantly pushed boundaries, and not in a good way. One of the earliest incidents came in 1989 when he was convicted of indecent exposure and battery after a concert at George Mason University. According to reports, he exposed himself and made unwanted advances toward a female fan. He was fined, but the incident barely made a dent in his career. Then there was his feud with Faith No More's Mike Patton. It started when Anthony accused Patton of copying his style. But instead of just trading insults, Anthony allegedly used his influence to blacklist Patton's side project, Mr. Bungle, from festivals and events. It was a petty, ego-driven move that seriously hurt another band's chances of success. And then there were the allegations from industry professionals. A former record executive claimed that members of the Red Hot Chili Peppers harassed her in a storage room, making inappropriate comments and making her feel trapped. Despite all of this, Anthony's career continued to thrive. The band kept selling millions of records, playing to sold-out stadiums, and winning awards. His past behavior was either ignored or excused as rock star antics. But even though he seemed untouchable, people were starting to ask questions. Was it really just part of the lifestyle? Or was it something much worse? Despite everything Anthony Kiedis had done, his career never really suffered. The Red Hot Chili Peppers kept growing, releasing hit albums and playing massive tours. For most fans, the music overshadowed the controversies. But in recent years, more people have started looking at his past with a different perspective. The story he casually told in his autobiography, the one about the 14-year-old girl, has resurfaced. And this time, people aren't just brushing it off. With the world changing and accountability becoming more important in the entertainment industry, some have started asking, should Anthony Kiedis have faced consequences? Legally, he was never charged for what he admitted to. But under Louisiana's current laws, if his victim were to come forward today, he could still be prosecuted. That raises an even bigger question. If something is publicly known, but no one acts on it, does it mean it doesn't matter? At the same time, Anthony has made efforts to turn his life around. He's been sober for years, focused on making music, and stays out of trouble, at least publicly. But can someone ever truly escape their past? Some believe that redemption is possible. Others say there are things that can't be forgiven. Anthony Kiedis went from a troubled kid in LA to one of the biggest rock stars in the world. He's survived addiction, scandals, and personal tragedy, but some choices never fade away. His past actions, especially the one he admitted to in his book, leave a stain that even decades of success can't fully erase. While the world has changed and more people are being held accountable, Anthony remains untouched. His music still sells, his band still tours, and his story continues. But as time goes on, one question lingers. Should his past have caught up with him, or did fame save him forever?
Penetration,